We did it. We did it. We is live. I like how I say we did it as if I made myself a part of that. But welcome everybody to this live on relationships that I was going to be doing on my own, but Amanda put a hand up and I'm like, baby, come join me. And so here we are. We have our dragons because we're talking relationships. You know, we need a little bit of a we're going to bring the magic to this topic, hopefully.
Like our emotional support animals, you know.
That's a good way of putting it. My emotional support animal is here for support. I like it. So I called this live, what's your recipe to relationship? Because I know for each of us, we have our own secret little recipe that we use to create our relationships, but we don't usually even know what's in that recipe.
True story.
Yeah, we run around the kitchen throwing everything that we can find in that we don't even know what we're using to bake the cake of a relationship, going, why isn't my relationship working? What's happening? But I'm grateful that you're on here with me too, Amanda, because I saw the post you wrote the other day, and what I loved about that post was the vulnerability in it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that gets us so twisted up is this unwillingness to be honest with ourselves with regards to this topic. You know, I know for me, I've got my own special flavor of relationship. You talked about yours, but mine has always been this. Well, it's so interesting because I'm also having one of those days where putting words to things is the words are nowhere even close to the awareness of the energy behind it. Mm-hmm. But how many of you do that with relationship where you keep trying to navigate it from this linear point of view, but it's so much bigger energetically. And that's one of the things that I see what we do with relationships is we make them such this small box of reality when you have an awareness of what's truly possible, something that you could create. And so for me, it's really one of the things that's been an interesting thing for me to look at over the years is where I would use it to avoid creating my life, but I would also get into a relationship with somebody that I could make the source for the creation of my life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, wow. And for me as well, it's like relationships can be such a beautiful contribution to your life, you know? And I feel so fortunate and so lucky that I actually have been experiencing that. But then it's also like having that vulnerability and being honest with yourself and following what you actually know with like, but now we're done, you know, which is this post that you were mentioning. It was about that because I just broke up a relationship that I've been in for the last 2.5 years. And, you know, just that willingness to really listen to what you are aware of the future. Yeah. And not having to make it about anything being wrong, you know, which is we're so entrained and so taught to we can only choose something different, maybe especially when it comes to relationship, because something is wrong, you know, when we have a good reason and justification or something that we can blame, or we can make the other person wrong so that we can separate from them or whatever, you know. And it's like, what if we can just make choices based on what we actually know, not the whole, you know, drama around it. And it's like, oh goodness, I've had experiences on both ends of the spectra, you know. I've had the whole drama. Trust me, I've experienced that. But even in that, which was another relationship, even in that, I actually didn't choose to break up that relationship because of all of the drama. I actually chose to leave that relationship because I just knew that something else was available. So it's just interesting to me how we tend to, and if I'm honest with myself, I probably knew that already like before. So exactly that thing that you were saying is all of like, how do we use relationship as a way to just not create our lives?
Yeah, big time. And also that thing of like having brutal honesty with yourself, that's also been such an interesting journey, well, first of all, recognizing you can't change anything that you keep hidden from you. And so in that unhiding, the willingness to look at anything regardless doesn't mean you have to share it with the world, but the willingness to look at, okay, what is actually true for me with regards to this? And so in me, with looking at, okay, do I really need a relationship to create my life? Even that question alone, and knowing with honesty with myself that was a no, I would still see where I would keep the energetics of it hidden from me. But in looking at it, I looked at, well, whose recipe is that? I grew up around that energy. And then so anything that didn't match that was so beyond even reality for me. Anything that was beyond that you could actually show up in a relationship and be creative, or you could be in a relationship where not only you're creating a relationship, but you're also creating more of who you are being in it.
Yeah.
And I was always like, I always had that as kind of in the impossible basket. It was like, wow, yeah, that fucking blows my universe up. Like that feels so much lighter and so much more matches the energy of what I know is possible, but it doesn't at all match the energy of what I've decided my reality is with regards to it.
Wow. And like what is interesting that just pops into my head, and I have never thought of it this way until right now, is just that thing of like, what if relationship is a way to actually get you to have more of you? I actually feel like I have gotten that even in the most shitty, gaslighting, abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Like at some point. It took a while, afterwards, but it actually has, all of it has given me more of me. But that's also because, I've been using the tools of Access Consciousness and I've actually been willing to see it from that point of view and actually be grateful for all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because, if you choose that, if you choose gratitude and you choose to be like, okay, wow, that was interesting.
Yeah.
What did I learn? Like what awareness did I gain?
I love that. I love that also though, because that everything becomes a gift for more awareness when you're willing to have that honesty with yourself with it. And because it also it's relationships are a big topic. If we picked a few topics where it was like, okay, what's your what's your 3 topics? Relationship would be in most people's, relationship, money, and bodies, sex, business, things like that. But relationship is such a big one. And I always kind of wondered about that. I was like, what is it that we're actually striving for with this?
Yeah. Good question. I don't have an answer for you, but it is so interesting because that whole like recipe, utopian ideal, like, because I've had in the process, of ending a relationship, I've had so much insanity show up in my world. And 99% of it is not even mine. But one of the things that has been really like in my face is like, but what's the fucking point? Like, Isn't that the whole point of life? To have a good relationship, to create a family, to have the whole, the whole package. And I'm like, wow, that is so interesting that is such a program that is just running in the background, and again, Access Consciousness, fucking hell, I don't know what I would have done without the tools.
Man, I hear you, sister. But I love that also, because that's the stuff. Like if you're listening to this, that's the good stuff. the insanities. You might be thinking, no, that's the bad stuff. I could never talk about that. I'd never desire to expose that. Well, but in that, it's we keep it hidden from ourselves, because I have the same shit. I have things that have come up over the years where I'm just like, man, like I've had this thing in my world recently where it's getting this awareness. I had a lot more clarity on it actually today, with where I would basically have this kind of like a two-sided thing where it was not desiring to be alone while also creating myself as someone who is pushing people away to a degree. Like I would let people in to a degree that I could maintain some kind of connection with, but not all the way in. You don't want to see who I really am, you know? And I realized that for me today, I was looking at that and I was like, wow, that doesn't really give me much access to me either.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's totally. all of this stuff in our insane minds. And like you talked about with the programming, that's all the stuff that keeps us stuck. Rather than, if I could have honesty with myself with this, what's actually true for me?
Yeah. Yeah. And allowing that to change, you know, like allowing it to be different. Like at some point in your life, you might desire that whole, you know,
picket fence, 2.4 children, you know, like a house in the country with that kind of, is that what you mean?
Yeah. And you know, that's not wrong.
No.
Like, that's the whole point, you know, to actually, but again, if you are willing to have that honesty with yourself, you can really look at, but what is actually true for me? Yeah. Versus like, what am I functioning from that is just there in the background running that I am not really aware of, but I am aware of it. And it creates this like weird frustration in your world, because it seems like you can never get to that sense of like lightness and what is actually true for you. And then, you know, I think it's just such a beautiful freedom in allowing yourself to also change your mind. Like it doesn't have to, you know, just because you make one choice doesn't mean that you have to stick to that choice.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to, you know, marrying someone, you can change that too. That's allowed.
Yeah, that's allowed. Also, you can try it on and see if it works.
Yeah, exactly.
There was something else there that then it left. I was like, oh, the thing with, you know, we brought up before, like, what is it that we strive for with relationship? Because so many things. We have so many tools in Access. Like if you desire to create one that works, what I've found is unless you're willing to be conscious in it, it doesn't work. And, you know, and so we've got 3 things as a beginning for a good relationship that we talk about in Access is the person is good in bed. They let you do whatever they want. They let you do whatever you want. You let them do whatever you want, whatever they want. You know what I mean? And they contribute financially. Now, those 3 things can sound so simple, but in that, they're good in bed. If you add to that what we're talking about with having honesty with you and what's actually true for you, what is that for you? You know, because you could look at, oh, well, good in bed means we have to have sex this amount and we do it this way and this is how it is. And, you know, and they look a certain way and this is how they make me feel and all of this. What if your sexual reality was far bigger than that also? Yeah. What else does that include? And if you're willing to have the honesty with yourself with that, how much more receiving would that allow you with regards to sex?
Yeah. Then
we've got letting them do whatever they want. Them letting you do whatever you want. That is easier than it sounds, you know, because having no projections and expectations of who somebody should be, not only that, but allowing them to be different each day, allowing you to be different each day, and not projecting and expecting someone to be something different, that takes some serious honesty with self. And then the contributing financially part, actually receiving, like that thing I talked about before with me, where I was really like desiring people to be close to me, but also seeing where I wasn't allowing myself to receive closeness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and as you touched on before as well, like if you don't have that vulnerability and closeness and intimacy with yourself, then of course you won't be able to receive it from anyone else. And
story.
It's like growing up, how many examples did you guys see of people that were actually truly intimate and close and vulnerable and honest with themselves? It's like
this many.
Yeah.
This many.
So just that is like game changer.
Yeah.
And where it all begins, actually, your relationship with you.
True story. And that, we talk about the 5 elements of intimacy, not being about sex, being about true intimacy, which is honor, trust, vulnerability, allowance, and gratitude. And like having those, like, so it's, one of the things that I like looking at with this topic of relationship is, that my dragon's like, I've had enough of relationships. Is it really does it? We make it so difficult, but it really is actually pragmatic. Like if you looked at the pragmatics of relationships and were willing to use use the tools, different possibility. But so in this, what would it be like if you had total gratitude for the people that you were in relationship with?
Yeah. All kinds of relationships.
Totally. All kinds of relationships. But also, well, there's that. And that's a big topic also, like going into each and every one of those things and looking at what that is. But see, there so many things again that they can be such a breeding ground for the insanity that we've talked about. Like relationship can be such a breeding ground for that. But again, what if it was from a different perspective? What if it was what if rather than looking at it as a breeding ground for insanity, you recognize that insanity also is a key to freedom? And there's so many different ways of looking at this also, but one of my favorite tools in the last, 12 months or so, one of my favorite tools, but also one of the more uncomfortable ones to use, is recognizing that anything that triggers me, there's somewhere I'm doing that too. Anything that I desire to separate from, there's something in me that I'm actually desiring to separate from. And it's again, that thing with vulnerability. Like if you're in relationship, and this, like you say, anything, relationship with your kids, relationship with people you work with, relationship with yourself, relationship with your family, is recognizing that if you're separating from something, if you're triggered by something, if you're judging something, there's somewhere that you've been there and done that, or somewhere you're currently being and doing it that not acknowledging. And if you hear that and you kind of just like, then it might be your item. But it's like, because I heard that and I was just like, no, but I know it's true, is like recognizing that. And if you recognize, if you're willing to have the honesty with yourself with it, you can change it.
Yeah. And it's such a beautiful way to also, it's like if you don't have to make yourself right, and if you don't have anything to prove,
Man.
then it's like, okay, like here I am. I have some amazing things going on. I have some fucked up, insane shit going on, and I'm pretty awesome. And I'm not perfect, and just being willing to cut yourself some slack. Like we are so hard on ourselves.
No shit.
Like if we can what will it take for us to have way more of that softness and kindness with ourselves? Of just like, oopsie, that wasn't really what that didn't show up the way I thought it would, or wow, I was being a bitch there or an asshole there, or whatever it is, or like, wow, I am insane when it comes to relationships, for an example. Like, but what if it didn't have to be so relevant and be so significant?
Yeah, that part, be so relevant, but also the willingness to go, okay, this is another thing that I found out that's just fucking insane about me. Cool. What else can I change with this?
Yeah, totally. And that curiosity, I think, is such a key thing as well, of actually being able to create a different relationship with yourself, but also with everybody else in your life, of like, wow, what else is actually possible here that I have never considered? Like now, because, the only things that will actually limit you are the things that you're not willing to be present with.
True story. That's a big one.
Yeah.
So I was just on, Dan was doing the practical magic call that he's doing at the moment, which has been awesome. And he was saying something on that I just was like, that's a really cool way of looking at it. He's like, because I don't know about you, but I've been good at hiding any part or piece of me that I thought anyone else would judge also. And he was like, what if you could invite those things in that actually allowed you to see what's limiting you? Because it's like, even if someone was to, if someone, calls you out on something, or somebody, you're having a conversation and you notice somewhere where you're creating a limitation of yourself and you feel yourself try to shrink into it, rather than that, what if you could be like, okay, cool. And actually, like you said, be present with all of it.
That takes balls and a lot of vulnerability.
True story.
But the funny thing is that, like, when when we talk about like being vulnerable, it can seem and feel, quote unquote, like such a hard thing to choose, or hard energy to be, or whatever. But it's actually who we innately are.
Yeah.
Like, if we are really if we can really, peel back all of the shit, then we are actually these vulnerable, soft, kind, caring creatures. And I think in some way we all know that, which is why it's extra frustrating when it seems like we can't access it.
Yeah.
But to acknowledge that, like, vulnerability, gratitude, honoring, allowance. What's the fifth one?
Well,
those the 5 minutes of intimacy.
I was like, don't ask me, I don't
know. That's what we actually are.
True story.
Way more true than all of the other stuff.
Yeah. And, that's why I wanted to start off with the dragons, around this, because one of the things, like, if you're creating a relationship as a 6-year-old kid, where you were so excited to be with somebody, and you're just like, oh my goodness, this is my, and you just had that energy, what would that willingness to be, what would that vulnerability create as relationships? How much of you would you have to allow to be seen in order to create the relationships that work for you? And I mean, at the end of the day, if you're like, well, I can't expose this about me because, it's bad, terrible, evil, or wrong, and I don't want this person to judge me for it. I wonder if you could ask for different relationships also. Like, I remember the first long-term relationship that I was in, the girl I got together with, who turned out to be the mother of my child. It was such an actualization of everything that I decided I had to have love me in order to be lovable. And I basically chose somebody who didn't really have the ability to love somebody else. You know, she didn't really have the ability to be open and vulnerable. And it was like, man, if I can conquer this, then I can conquer a relationship. And it's like, but I look back on that, and like you said before, also, I learned so much about myself through choosing what's not me.
Yeah.
You know, same with my journey with alcoholism. I learned so much about myself when I was willing to make a different choice through so much of what's not me.
Yep. Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, another thing is, this is our first little installment of the relationship trifecta we have going on right now. Okay, so if this is a topic for you, I have an intro class on in a couple of days. Wednesday night, it's going to be on. It's called Future or Fantasy: Pragmatic Tools for a Relationship. And we have a lot. There are a lot of tools, a lot of awareness on this topic. And also I'm doing a relationship, Are You Sure You Want One? The book that I co-authored with Simone Milasas. I am doing a book club on that starting, I think, next week. That's going to be 3 days. And that's awesome too. Because what if you truly could create the relationships that only you can?
Yeah. I love the title of that book. Like, it makes me so happy because it's such a, like, are you sure? Like, are you sure you want one? Because
well,
it's like,
you know what's funny about it? Yeah. Well, we wrote that book, and first of all, like, you know, I was in a relationship with Simone Milasas at the time, and she was like, let's write a book on this, you know, and I think we'd done a telecall or something, which, you know, became some elements of that book. And, you know, so we're doing this book, and I'm, you know, I don't know about you guys listening, but I had the point of view about myself. There's no way I could ever write a book. You know, that's just crazy. That's for smart people. I'm not the smart people. And so we finished this book, and she's like, what are we going to call it? And I just, like, I pondered on that, and I was like, and that was what popped into my head, because I'm like, I see how we do that. I need a relationship. I don't think I want one, but I need one. So I'm going to create one the way that, you know, and it's like, are you sure you want one?
Yeah. It's so great. It's such a good book.
Yeah. I think it's awesome too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you for being here with me.
Thank you. This is this is a big topic, as you said, and something that you could, you know, explore forever and ever and ever. And how cool is that? Like, you know, how did we get so lucky to get to explore this every day?
Yeah, and have the tools to actually create it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be hard.
It doesn't. See, you only want one thing hard in life, and you can all extrapolate on what that is. But yeah, just go there. Okay. I'm sending you visuals free of charge. There you go.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Brendan. Yay. Ciao.